party people! Have you occasionally found yourself wondering, wherever did that award-winning, thought-provoking, and cutting-edge podcast, Death Party, go?
Who?
That's us.
I knew that. It's us! You guys thought we died, huh? I, emotionally died. And mentally.
Also, we haven't actually won any awards, just in our hearts, which are the best awards.
I made an award, and I gave it to us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, and I will accept it on behalf of us.
Thank you.
I mean, it has been months since we've made an episode. Years, maybe. We very well could have died. I don't know if anyone would have noticed, honestly.
Oh.
It's not like there's podcast obituaries or anything.
Nobody even came to visit my grave.
Oh, but you didn't actually die, though?
Well, I could have. I still might.
To make a point?
For effect.
But if you had died, you would still come back and help me make this show, right? I can't sit here and make bad puns at a vacant microphone in an airless room.
Josh would still set up my microphone, and you would just sit here and talk at it? That is heartwarming and also sad. There's confusing feelings happening. Yeah, I got nothing better to do. I'd come back to do the show with you after I died.
Aww.
But your puns would probably just kill me again.
Oh. Man, Halloween was a long time ago, but here we are talking about if you had a lackluster Halloween this year. Or your entire spooky season was less spooky than you like. I know.
Politics made my spooky season scary instead of spooky.
Yeah. How many times I've longed for stupid elections to be sometime other than right after the best holiday of the year.
Yeah.
And right before the biggest holidays where you're gonna see people who vote the opposite of how you vote. Ugh. But don't despair about all of that right now because there's the silver lining.
What's that?
The other spooky season is upon us.
Yay!
So there's still time to celebrate the spooky.
Hell yeah, continue the spookies.
Yes, dear listener, we are talking about winter, of course, a season which has carried a centuries-old folk custom of telling stories involving specters and spooks. While the tradition of sitting around a fire as our only source of warmth and telling ghost stories to scare the poop out of our friends hasn't quite maintained its allure in the heat-on-demand and digital age.
And the try not to poop your pants in public age, too.
Yes, that used to be much more smiled upon. It's more socially acceptable back in the day. There's still something to be said for reading ghostly tales or watching ooky spooky shows from the comfort of your couch when the days get shorter and the temperatures drop.
Yeah, by the time I shower and put my human skin on, it's already getting dark outside. I'm not going out and all that.
No, why should you? Stupid daylight savings.
Yeah, more like nightlight savings because we have to save all our money to buy nightlights because it gets dark so damn early. Damn it.
Okay. So wrap yourself in a cozy blanket, light a pine-scented candle, and join us as we dig into the origins and traditions of spooky winter storytelling on this episode of
Death Party!
Before Halloween was the holiday connected to demons and spirits running amok, that association was previously made with Christmas Eve.
Take that, Santa.
Or December 24th if you're like Faye and not great at keeping track of these things.
Hey, I don't even know what day today is, so I'll have you know that I'm not just bad at holidays.
In fact, English author Jerome K. Jerome weighed in on the subject of ghosts running amok around Christmas time in Told After Supper, published in 1891.
What? His name was Jerome? Who did that to that poor man?
Oh, yeah. Notice the K in there? You know, he had to go out of his way to include that so he didn't come off as a complete maniac or a boy band. Mm-hmm. Told After Supper is a collection of humorous ghost tales told in turns by a group of friends who have gathered after dinner on Christmas Eve. In the first pages of Told After Supper, Mr. Jerome writes, it is always Christmas Eve in a ghost story. Christmas Eve is the ghost's great gala night. On Christmas Eve, everybody in Ghostland who is anybody, or rather, speaking of ghosts, one should say, I suppose, every nobody who is any nobody comes out to show himself or herself, to see and to be seen, to promenade about.
That sounds like a quote from Drag Race. This was in 1891?
Yes, ma'am. Hell yes, Miss Sister Friend. Yes.
Yes, queen.
A bit further into the story, Jerome writes, ghosts never come out on Christmas night itself. You may have noticed. Stupid. You make me do these voices. You make me. Christmas Eve, we suspect, has been too much for them. They are not used to excitement.
It takes longer to recover from a night of partying when you're older. I can't imagine how I'm going to feel when I'm 250 years old.
Ugh, probably like Goldie Hawn's character in Death Becomes Her.
I feel like that now.
Sucks. Mr. Mr. JJ. What do you think his friends called him? Jerry.
Jerry.
Good
old
Binks.
Jerry.
Jerome remarked, the average Orthodox ghost does his one turn a year on Christmas Eve and is satisfied. Average ghosts apparently had no interest in a Halloween haunt in 1891, at least not in England, suffice it to say.
Yeah, and they were lazy too. Once a year, that's all we get. Then it's just back to slacking.
The prevailing thought in Jerome's time was that the night before Christmas meant ghosts had a free pass to roam around and rabble-rouse just before the holy day. Kind of like if you grew up in a snowy climate, you didn't do your homework the night before a blizzard was forecast in the hopes that school would be called off the next day.
See? Slacking.
Faye, as a native Californian, do you have any questions about snow days, or did you actually get them because you're from Northern California?
I was born in Illinois.
Ow!
And I thought we were friends.
Can't believe you'd admit that in public.
I mean, yeah, I'm from California, totally.
Sorry,
totally, dude. No, we did not get snow days in California, even when it snowed. School was still open and nobody knew how to drive in the snow, and people would just go careening off into ditches trying to get their kids to school, and the school was just like, figure it out, losers. And back in Illinois, where I was born, if you were my friend, you would know that. When I was real little, it would snow buckets, and I was like 5 years old, and I would have to trudge out to the main road in the countryside where the school bus would pick me up, which was like 800 child years of walking, and I would stand there and freeze my dick off in the snow up to my tiny child eyeballs so the bus would show up, because school there was also like, figure it out, losers. Portland is the first place I've ever lived that has snow days, and I work remote, so I don't even get to fuck off and have a free day now either. Kids these days, something, uphill both ways in the snow.
Yeah. Wait.
Did you get snow days growing up?
Hell yeah, I got snow days growing up.
What?
Yeah, I thought everyone did.
What?
Wait, did you? Oh, because there was like 2 roads in all of Illinois.
I mean, yeah. There was a giant cow pasture, and in the middle of it, going off as far as I could see, were 2 roads. And they plowed them, and then they were like, get on those roads and go to school, you little assholes. We don't care if you die in a ditch in the snow. That's what people in Illinois sound like, by the way.
Yeah, none of that Midwest hospitality that we've heard so much about. It was like the one road that goes to Chicago, and then the other one's like, you, who cares?
Pretty much. It
Where it
goes off
goes.
into like a pond or
Yeah.
something.
Potatoes? Oh, wrong I-state.
Thanks.
What does Illinois do other than Chicago?
Nothing.
What do they have?
I don't know. Corn, I think.
Slaughterhouses. Okay. Wait. I have questions.
What?
Do you know what black ice is?
Yes, I do.
Really?
I have hit black ice. I learned really fast what
I don't
black
know.
ice was.
That just like bonded me so much more to you. I don't know why. Like you understand.
Did we just trauma bond right now?
I think we did. Not everybody, people out here, Oregon, God love them. They're just,
They can't even drive in the rain out here. It rains all the time.
that's true. It's just the little regard for young children
Yeah,
is kind of reminiscent of medieval times.
right? My life has been one long string of unfair situations.
Well, sucks for you. Also, speaking of medieval,
Indeed.
according to the British Library's lead curator, Tanya Kirk, in medieval times, a pervasive belief was that souls trapped in purgatory were especially restless right before a feast day, such as Christmas. But then once the holiday came, they chilled out and decided they were better off with mani-pedi than with scaring the daylights out of the living or whatever.
I get that way when I'm hangry too.
Because telling ghost stories at year's end is a tradition that has been around since before written record, the precise age of this tradition is difficult to pin down. But it's safe to say it's a practice that's been around for centuries. Picture it. Long before we had electricity, you'd return to your dark home at the end of the workday,
Trip over your cat.
light a beeswax candle to see by,
Stub your toe on a wooden stool.
and have a few hours to pass before going to bed.
Sounds terrible.
Also, you had to make that fucking beeswax candle, let's be honest. Also, you don't know how to read, and I guess knitting is like the funnest thing that exists, which is still basically work, but somehow counts as leisure time too. Maybe because you sit in a rocking chair and do it, unlike all the other chores and bullshit your daily life consists of. Sowing seeds, standing, getting water from a well or some shit, standing, washing laundry, standing, while beating it on a rock.
I sit down when I need to beat things with rocks.
No, on a rock.
Oh.
You're not trying to kill it.
I'm not?
Okay. Milking the cows. Sitting, I guess, but a three-legged stool ain't exactly the pinnacle of comfort.
Yeah, and you already stubbed your toe on it in the dark, so you're still mad about it.
Okay, so you're sitting in your handmade rocking chair. Maybe it's a little wonky because it was whittled out of fallen logs by hand?
Hey, you can't even comprehend my whittling skills.
Touche. Well, either way, it's the first proper sit you've had all day, unless you count a visit to the privy down a muddy, rocky path in your slippery-ass, flat-soled boots.
Ew, my life sounds horrible.
So you've got a knitting project in your lap and probably are wearing a few older knitting projects. Hell, you might be covered head to toe in shit you had to knit. What choice did you have?
Yeah, 'cause it's cold as hell in this house. When are they going to invent insulation?
So you're knitting that scarf that's going to fall off constantly because infinity scarves weren't even a thing yet. What a world. And you've got a couple of hours to pass before going to bed at 9 p.m. so you can get a good night's sleep in before waking up at 4 a.m. to milk the goats and shave the sheep. Or muck stalls of some kind. Maybe not even your own stalls because you're a peasant. Ah, the humanity.
This drudgery is gonna give me PTSD. How long till someone invents psychotherapy?
Right? Seems like a pretty good time to swap a ghost story or two with your friends and family to help you forget about the soul-crushing tedium of your everyday toil.
That life isn't scary enough? I need to be haunted too?
I'm editorializing, but maybe what I consider everyday toil was actually super fun good times for the people that lived it. And everyone loved doing all of the chores all of the daytime, and knitting at night was like a 10 out of 10 on everyone's funometer. Who am I to say?
There are an awful lot of knitters in this town. Maybe there's a high there that we don't know about?
if that old-timey slice-of-life picture I just painted didn't get the point across.
My takeaway was that I should try knitting, I think.
An author with some amount of name recognition. You might have heard of him. His name has something to do with waving a pointed stick.
Huh?
You get a stick and it's pointed and you just like wave, shaking it.
What?
Shakespeare.
Not ringing any bells. Also, that was terrible for the record.
You're probably right. Every few years or so, there's another adaptation of one of his dusty old stories. In The Winter's Tale, written in 1611, one character says, "A sad tale's best for winter."
I'm not going to do a voice.
Just on it every time. A sad tale's best for winter. I have one of sprites and goblins.
I also like goblins.
Back in Old Shakey's day, and for more than 1,500 years before it, Samhain was celebrated halfway between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice, and marked the transition between the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the winter season. As the crops are dying and everyday life from November on is being set against the backdrop of an increasingly barren landscape, it's not hard to see how this period of seasonal change was viewed as a liminal period, marking the transition of old and new.
Ooh.
Now, days are becoming shorter and nights are getting longer, so it seemed natural that ghosts could more easily pierce the veil and return to Earth to wreak havoc and run amok. If I was a ghost running amok during the winter, I'd scramble all the ticket purchasing systems so that all service fees are waived, except for like small local business venues that really need the service fees to survive.
I don't think those are the kinds of shenanigans that rabble-rousing spirits get up to when they have only 1 or 2 nights to return to Earth.
Okay, well, that's their loss, frankly. Are you saying that I'd be the first? Putting money back in hardworking people's pockets and being a trailblazing ghost? My afterlife is sounding pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, except there were 4 ghosts in Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol who basically did the same thing, but you could be the 5th. Those are still pretty good numbers, like, not for the Olympics or anything, but just generally they're good numbers.
5th. Okay, I'll take it.
Actually, now that I think about it, there might be other stories.
No, I
too
said
that-
I'll take it. I'm 5th. 5th best.
Okay.
All right. So we've got the tradition of wintertime ghost storytelling going back to at least 1611, Old Shakey's day, way before old... Why are we calling everybody old?
They're dead.
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 Going back to at least 1611, Old Shakey's day, way before Charles Dickens was even a twinkle in a pair of eyeballs looking fondly at each other.
One pair of eyeballs looking fondly at each other? That would be like a person fancying themselves while being cross-eyed or something. I think you need 2 sets of eyeballs.
Yeah. Well, however you want to imagine it. Listener's eyeball discretion up to listeners.
Listen to your own eyeballs at your discretion.
Yeah. So then 30-something years later, after Shakespeare was writing all this junk, the English government decided to ban Christmas.
Wait, what?
Yeah. I know. Some sources like to attribute the Christmas ban of 1644 to one particular political killjoy by the name of Oliver Cromwell. But whether or not the responsibility rests on his shoulders solely feels like it's outside of the scope of this episode. And frankly, scapegoating isn't something I have the energy for at the moment. So I'm just going to let you do your own research into that one.
Nah, I'm probably too lazy for that. He sounds like a jerk.
Well, I was reading there's like the Oliver Cromwell Society or whatever, and they have a website, and they're like, no, he didn't do it. Exonerate Cromwell 400 years after the fact. And I was like, okay.
His good name.
He wasn't the only guy in Congress or whatever their political system, parliament. It's like, there was a lot of other people who thought that banning
He was
Christmas
only one of the assholes involved.
Stop blaming him, what? Yeah, we're all descended from him, what?
I don't know if they were or not, but like, come on. It's 400 years ago. Like,
Let it go.
why are you so invested? Yeah, fun times on the internet, as always. Well, the idea behind banning Christmas was, unsurprisingly, to suck all the fun out of it.
Typical.
Because the ideal Puritan Christmas was less a celebration and more of a solemn religious occasion.
Oh, right. Religious wingnuts. When are they ever not a thing?
Yeah, mirth making at the time was a hard no, as was any telling of ghost stories or tales of the supernatural, as these were still linked to Samhain and therefore paganism.
The good stuff.
As a result, this 17th century ban of ghost stories changed cultural norms and managed to stick around for another couple hundred years.
Gross.
I know, but what a glorious fall the ban had when it came to a crashing halt.
Yes, finally. Get to the good part already.
How did wintertime ghost stories come back into the cultural consciousness?
Will the answer surprise me?
Well, the answer may surprise you.
Gasp.
A certain English magazine editor who you may have just referenced, who wrote a certain wildly popular Christmas ghost story, is credited with the modern day association betwixt Christmas and ghoulies.
Oh, Charles Darwin.
Dickens.
Who did I say?
The Christmas issues of magazines he edited, such as Household Worlds and All the Year Round, frequently included ghost stories, and winter issues featuring ghost stories were linked specifically to Christmas Eve.
Ooh.
Published magazines in circulation cemented this cultural link between Christmas Eve and ghost storytelling, since this link was so deliberately repeated. And although the work that he's best known for today had not yet been written, with Charles Dickens' name as the magazine editor appearing on the front page of these magazines, that alone was enough to guarantee sales. So by the time A Christmas Carol was published in 1843, the average sooty, filthy, and possibly illiterate person on an average 19th century English street was fully primed for Christmas ghosts coming out of the woodwork and making the holiday season one filled with terror and dread. And not because they were living in fear of receiving their post-holiday credit card statements like I am today.
Ow.
I'd take being visited by 3 time-based ghosts over being faced by post-holiday credit card statements dread any day.
Same, sister. Same.
Unfortunately, undigested beef just doesn't have the same effect on me that it did on Ebenezer Scrooge. As one article puts it, I know what you're thinking. The oral tradition of telling ghost tales at Christmas had become literary orthodoxy in Victorian times, thanks to Charles Dickens, and to the extraordinary proliferation of periodicals in the 19th century. Many of these imitated Household Words in producing a special ghost-filled Christmas issue. The genre rapidly spawned cliches. Think about it.
I am.
If you know any Christmas stories, The Christmas Carol is probably one of the top 5 that comes to mind.
Right after Scrooged with Bill Murray. What a gem.
Yeah, well,
I know.
okay, just checking. In fact, the true, actual, original title is A Christmas Carol in Prose, being a ghost story of Christmas. It's freaking full of ghosts. Not only that, but it's one of, if not the most popular ghost stories around, and it's about Christmas.
Spooky miss.
Personally, I find this very reassuring for multiple reasons. 1, somehow, even though, or perhaps because there were vast socioeconomic differences amongst the haves and the have-nots in England at the time, this tale of charitable giving, generosity towards subordinates, and following your heart instead of your pocketbook struck a chord with the population at large. It was hugely popular in its day and continues to be in modern times.
Yeah, that's because disparity never changes.
Yeah. 180 plus years later, the story has never been out of print.
Wow.
And 2, It's nice to think of Christmas as something other than the consumption-driven late-stage capitalism death spiral barrage of constant, omnipresent advertising. It's almost enough to put me off watching YouTube entirely starting November 1st.
Same. The Great British Baking Show is the only thing that gets me through this bleak
Aw, no. While A Christmas Carol may have breathed new life into the link between Christmas and ghosts once again, and for decades to come, it wasn't the only story of the era to put the spooky back in the original spooky season. We referenced Told After Supper earlier in this episode, a book that came out 40 years after A Christmas Carol and shared the theme of Christmassy ghost stories. Well, get out the paper towels because I'm about to blow your freaking mind right now.
Jeez, let me put down a tarp first at least.
A lot of classic stories you are already quite familiar with are freaky stories of ghosts or monsters that were specifically set in the winter months for maximum freak-out-city, freaky-outiness, freak factor, freakitude.
Okay.
All right. Case in point. If it's been a while since you've read 1898's A Turn of the Screw, or if you're like me and tried to read it and then you're like, this wasn't written for people like me, then you should know that it not only takes place in winter, but this yarn actually spins around a story within a story, and that story is being told on Christmas Eve.
Spooky months.
Exhibit 2. That was Exhibit 1. First published in the early 1900s in a collection titled The Dubliners, the rather long short story The Dead by James Joyce is a spooky tale set on Christmas night.
Catchy title.
Exhibit 3. The Old Nurse's Story by Elizabeth Gaskell, written in 1852, is a classic set over the winter holiday season. If the title doesn't immediately ring any jingle bells, you might be more familiar with the plot than with the title.
Okay, lay it on me.
A young nurse moves with her ward, Rosamond, to a large family mansion after Rosamond becomes an orphan. Spooky ghost hijinks ensue. For example, organ music is heard late at night, but the organ is broken. Ooh. And so on, and so ghostly forth. If you haven't read this story, there's a good chance you've read or watched something that referenced it, as it is a haunted house classic.
Nice.
Now, last but not least, and most dramatically, maybe, Frankenstein, written by Mary Shelley in 1818, opens with a character who's bound for the North Pole. The trip is halted when the travelers encounter impassable ice.
Holiday travel is the worst. Nothing has changed.
Victor Frankenstein is introduced to the travelers and tells his story, which is not quite complete. When Frankenstein gets to the end of recounting the tale, he reveals that he has unfinished business amongst the ice floes, and it is there in the freezing darkness the climax is resolved. Though this story isn't explicitly set over winter holidays, it is a story that begins and ends in a freezing, desolate landscape, bereft of any living souls who can possibly understand the horrors you've been through the past few months. And if that doesn't sound like Christmas after a presidential election cycle to you, then congratulations! You officially have a pretty good life. Well, ghouls and boys and other spooky beings, that wraps up our journey through the shadowy, snow-dusted corridors of spookiness. I think we've proven that December isn't just about decking the halls, it's about haunting them too. From the eerie strains of a broken organ to unfinished business on the ice floes, winter has always been a time to gather close, swap ghostly tales, and let the chill in the air whisper stories of what lurks just out of sight.
It's behind you!
What spooky setting will you be spending your dreary winters in,
For our listeners' sakes, I hope it's a deathly ice floe and not the airport.
So this holiday season, when someone says Merry Christmas, remind them that December is for running for your life from ghosts.
Yeah, I ain't got time to be Merry Buster. I'm not talking about old Saint Nick when I say I'm keeping one eye open for the Hat Man.
Yeah, and honestly, what's jollier than a ghost who just wants to work out their unresolved trauma?
That's probably what the Hat Man's doing.
Maybe that's why he's not always being seen. He's got to go back to the workshop, hammer out some shit. So pull those bed covers over your heads, dear listener, lest the Christmas spirits take hold of you. We hope you've enjoyed filling your creepy little ear holes with our creepy tale. And hey, thanks for tuning in to this merry macabre little sleigh ride with us.
Yeah.
And also, hey, if you're feeling extra festive, share this spooky Christmas wisdom with a friend who loves a good fright or needs to be reminded that eggnog tastes better with a splash of existential dread.
Until next time, stay spooky, stay cozy, and remember, the best way to spread Christmas cheer is wailing in the night for all to hear. Ooh. If you like us, if we haven't traumatized you yet, if you want more of our bizarre dad joke brand of whatever this is, then help us help you get more of what you want by giving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. And tell your friends. If they're as weird as you are, they might like us too. If you wanted to find other weirdos like you, or follow our Facebook page or Instagram, we're on all of those at Death Party Podcast. If you want to email us your amazing idea for an episode, love letters, hate mail, fan art, or your soul, you're not really using it anyway, you can send those to us at deathpartypodcast@gmail.com. Bye!
Bye! What? Who's a Hat Man?
Oh my god.
What?
How are we even doing this podcast? You don't know who the Hat Man is.
Who's what? I don't
They'll
know.
get it.
Who? Them?
The listeners. If they're listening to this, they know who the Hat Man is. Should we explain it?
I'm listening to this and I don't know who the Hat Man is.